This video is made possible by Practical Defense Systems, the best online security training at the lowest prices. You can start your security career today online at pdsclasses.com. Check them out. Hi, I'm Joel Persinger. I'm the Gun Guy. Thank you very much for all of your support of Gun Guy TV. I'm very, very grateful for everything that you do. I've got an interview with Rick Travis from the California Rifle and Pistol Association right now to share some great news out of the county of Los Angeles and the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department. So if you live in Los Angeles County and you've been wanting to get a concealed carry permit, you're going to want to hear this news. So we'll talk with Rick here in just a second. Before we do, I want to urge you to join the Gun Guy TV crew on Patreon, because that is where all of the exclusive content that I produce goes. Part of that exclusive content is these interviews in their entirety. Oftentimes I will edit them to make them shorter and more concise for public consumption, and then post the unedited version on Patreon for the crew members only. So check out the Gun Guy TV crew. You will find it in the description. Rick, thank you very much for joining me today. I appreciate it. We have it sounds like, some really good news out of Los Angeles. What's going on?
Yeah. Well, I think most of us, even a couple of weeks ago, if we were told that you would actually be able to apply, go through a process, and obtain a concealed carry permit, or known as a CCW in LA County, people have said, yeah, once I see, Seaton himself buying winter underwear in the middle of the summer, that would happen because hell would have to freeze over. But the California Rifle Pistol Association, along with Gun Owners of California, Sam, who knows on your show, we have been working behind the scenes with sheriffs up and down the state. And Villanueva has been building for about 6 months. We've been waiting to talk about this, a CCW unit. And he has done an outstanding job of going to sheriffs with proven units up and down the state to actually issue CCWs. He built it upon that model, and they just launched on Wednesday at about 4:30, 5 o'clock, launched their LA Twitter video saying it's time to apply. And so he's opened up the process for people to start applying for their CCWs.
Now, what is he using in California? In case you're not in California, there is a good cause requirement, and good cause, quote unquote, is defined by the individual sheriff or issuing authority. Each one is a little different. So do we have an idea of what the LA sheriff's good cause requirements are?
Yeah, so when we talked with the CCW unit personnel up at a conference that we held earlier this year, if initially it was they wanted you to apply to the city, and then they wanted you to go through this long, extravagant, but very secure process. The process, I want to emphasize, is extremely secure. The background has been proven literally over 100,000 times to be secure throughout the different departments in the state that do it. And so right now, the good cause is, if you can show that you are not a felon, which if you are, you shouldn't be applying for a CCW, that you own the firearm here in California, and that you're willing to go through the proper training through one of the approved vendors at the sheriff department, which is true of any sheriff, then you're pretty much going to be able to get it. And so, obviously there may be different quirks in people. And that's one of the things I wanted to point out on the show is, a lot of sheriffs get beat up from time to time by the Second Amendment community because there's delays. And so obviously if there's a delay, the sheriff's anti-Second Amendment. No, I can dispel that myth right now. We have sheriffs that are now issuing more CCWs than has ever been issued in their jurisdiction. And I can take one, for example, Fresno County. Margaret Mims is one of the most pro-Second Amendment people you'll ever meet in your lifetime. She has literally almost 30,000 CCWs in her county. And I saw the look on your face. That's a lot.
Well, considering her county is not a heavily populated county like Los Angeles or San Diego or anything like that. I mean, I don't know what the population of her county is, but it's not as great.
It's just under 1 million people.
Yeah.
So when you look at that, that's outstanding. She has in the last year almost 15,000 new applicants. So a lot of your listeners would be, well, what does that mean, Rick? And it means simply this, that of that 30,000, roughly half of those have to go through a background check every other year to be able to retain. That's called a renewal process. But the new process is a little bit more in depth because it's the first time for the sheriff's department to look at the applicant. They have to go through the initial background check. So there's not one to frame it off of like there is with the renewal. And so that takes up more time. Now, this is all happening at a time where departments are being cut between 15 and 30% of their budget. So all you have to look at is very small force to work with and extremely huge number of applicants. And as those approved, assuming that, let's say she approves that 15,000. Well, now she's at 45,000, which means now you're up there at, what? That's like 17, I know that's like 22,500 people every year without any new applicants. So you can see as these applicants are approved and go through the training. And the other problem we have is bandwidth when it comes to rangers and trainers. As you know yourself, you can only train a finite number of people. And even if you were to, add more trainers, you can't add more range space. So there is an upward limit based on ranges, trainers, and staff of what they can do. And the public has to realize that is one of the variables that sometimes slows the process down, because the sheriffs are trying to look for very safe, but other methods to be able to get people to that point where they can issue. So when you look at what Villanueva has done very wisely, he's not starting off with a small CCW unit. He's got a pretty large CCW unit. So he's demonstrating the intent. I mean, you went hire 16 people, and when most departments have 4 to 6, Riverside is probably the biggest one right now, because Bianca, I think, has just now got somewhere around 18 people in his unit and has got multiple stations throughout the county, albeit Riverside is like, I think, the 3rd or 4th largest county in the country.
Yeah, it's big.
So it's got a lot of territory. But if you look what Villanueva is doing, he is backing this up by building a good infrastructure before he launched it. And so that is what impresses me the most, because I've seen how other departments have done it incrementally. There's one person in the unit, then 2 people in the unit, then 2 people plus 2 part-timers as they try to catch up, which has caused sometimes a 6 to 9 month delay as they're trying to get things, driven up. He was very, very, I think, proactive in building this unit and getting everybody trained and sending them around to the different departments and finding out where the pitfalls were and trying to pre-game that and handle that in advance. So I think this is exciting. I think the other part that we all have to look at, Joel, is we're up on an election year that actually kicks off unofficially. The primaries will kick off on the 1st of June. It usually happens right after Memorial Day that people start pushing out. Arguably, we could say that's already been going on, because there's quite a lot of people who popped up in the, quasi maybe have a governor's race, and also people starting to declare their reign for Congress and other positions. But sheriff's departments run in the off year. So in 22, we'll be voting for 57 of the 58 county sheriffs.
Yeah.
And there is a massive pushback by the far left and by the those that are supported primarily by Bloomberg, which would be like the Giffords Institute, Moms That Demand Action, et cetera. And they are all gunning. And Villanueva is in the hot seat. He's got a DA in Gascon who is, by his own admission, to the far left, who is going after him. He's got a board of supervisors going after him. And so this is one of those times I look at the 2A community going, you can't sit on the fence line. When you've got men and women who are standing up for your rights to exercise your Second Amendment rights by having a concealed carry permit, you got to get into trenches and you got to help them fight to stay in office. But, one of the things that I share all the time that happened in Orange County is, for the longest time, the vast majority of jurisdictions had this 3-gun rule on your permit. You could only have 3 firearms. And the story of how that got broken up is former Sheriff Hutchins out of Orange County, who passed away this last year. Unfortunately, she was just an incredible woman. She had called in at that time her undersheriff, Barnes, who is now the sheriff of Orange County, and said, hey, these are some good questions that CRPA has asked us of why is there only 3? And he was like, well, let me go find out. And so he went to Cal DOJ and they said, oh, there isn't 3. You can have more than 3. Mm-hmm. And so he came back and said, okay, well, I have more than 3. Of course, we can be like a dog with a bone sometimes. We won't let it go. And we're like, well, what's the number? Like, what's the outside limit?
There isn't one.
And when they went back, no, this is what was funny. The guy at DOJ said, well, it's the number of lines on a yellow sheet of paper. And when Barnes told the story, I was like, what? And he goes, yeah, they were actually keeping track, because what they do is they actually take the serial number of your firearm and then place CCW in front of it when they register it at the state level for you to be able to carry. So like if you get pulled over by a peace officer, they can see that as well. And he's like, do you still put on paper? Well, no, we put it on the computer. So that is why, yeah, that is why now most departments will tell you, depending on the card that they physically issue, it's somewhere usually between 3 on the front and up to 5 or 6 on the back, but you can have an addendum for more. The issue, though, passed by state law was that you have to show that you can cycle through. So it's 20 rounds with every firearm that you want to renew with. And lately that's become really expensive. So there was a period of time where a lot of people went to having 15, 18, 20, different concealed pistols. But now during the last year with the ammunition prices and shortages,
that's shrinking.
3 or 4.
So that's an absolutely huge win. How many counties now issue pretty regularly out of the 58?
Probably you're looking at about 48 of them do.
Now, so we got 10 to go. And
Yeah.
which is the biggest hurdle, do you think, at this point? I would have thought it was LA, honestly, but now I'm
San
not sure.
Francisco
Is
is
it?
probably our biggest one, which is really striking. A lot of people are like, well, let it go into the ocean. But, we have,
Well, that's not going to work.
it's really interesting because I just got done talking to John Bianchi, of Bianchi gun leather fame and stuff like that. And we were talking, and one of the gun stores that's just south of Daly City sells probably 90% of their firearms to people in San Francisco. And so I said, oh, so like, how many was that this last year? And he said, over 15,000. New.
Wow.
So, the attitude that nobody in San Francisco wants a firearm, owns a firearm, it's not true. We know back during Prop 63, we had over 50,000 people show up and vote against that proposition from within the city. So there's definitely a group in there. There's a couple of good size gun groups that go out to local ranges outside the city. So San Francisco is probably the hardest thing for us to crack open. And then you have some counties that border it, like Marin, who is very restricted. It's kind of judges and district attorneys get it. That's about it. But then you go maybe as the crow flies 20 miles away to Solano, and you got the sheriff up there, Sheriff Farrar, who's issued well over like 4,000 or 5,000 in his county. It's a smaller population there in Vacaville, but part of the big population is from the base there, Travis Air Force Base. But they issue all the time up there and other places. Napa Valley, the wine country, they issue with Sheriff Christensen. So, you look at different pockets up and down the state and people are issuing.
So if you are a Los Angelino, I urge you, apply. Just understand, be patient. It's new, it's going to be a bum's rush, and it's going to take time.
And know that we as a CRPA are working constantly behind the scenes to help the sheriffs with the CCW process, helping to put on conferences to help get these staff trained, and trying to solve the problems as best we can so that you aren't extended in a long period of wait time. But like you just said, there are some factors that are beyond everybody's control that we just have to take a day at a time. And one other thing, just before I have to take off to handle this other thing, we have an Assembly Bill 1223, which is, we've talked about before, it's the one on taxes, raising taxes every time you purchase a firearm,
right,
do anything with the firearm. It would basically put on a 31% tax on anything you did. And the original bill that they had written was to give it to the Victims' Rights Fund, of course, when President Biden gave money to Governor Newsom. That is now funded for like the next 3 years. So we thought we were going to be able to kill it. And just about 10 minutes before I came on your show, it's the reason I looked down a couple of minutes ago, they have now decided that they're going to create another victims fund to use this money to fund. So, and they've tried to block us from testimony, everything else. So we need your people. Call your local state senator and state assemblyman and say no on 1223, enough taxes. We don't want any.
You know what? I'm going to put a link in the description of the video, and I'll put it on the right here on the screen too. for you to know where to go to get that information, so you can go directly to it. It'll be in the description of the video, and it will be on the screen. And that's something, it's urgent that you do that right now while you're watching. Just pause the video right now. Right now. Have you done it yet? Okay, I'm waiting. It's right down there in the description. So do it right now. Pause the video right now. Okay, you got that done. Good. Then we can continue. I just want to make sure that you did that. Okay, make sure you did that right now. Rick's got to go. I want you to know I'm going to be up there visiting Rick and being a pain in the butt next week. And if they're kind to me and don't think I'll break their camera, maybe I can get on CRPA TV. It's been a lifelong ambition of mine. Okay, not, but that's okay. So he'll be talking to me, not the other way around. But Rick, I know you need to go. You got a meeting to go to, so we'll wrap it up here. Thank you very much for being on the show. I do appreciate it, and I will see you in person next week.
Wonderful. Thank you, everybody.
All right, brother. Thank you again for watching. Make sure that you've signed up for Gun Guy TV Crew to get the entire interview over at Patreon. Once again, that link is in description. And I'll also put in the description a link to the California Rifle and Pistol Association so that you can join and support, and we can continue to win these battles in the state of California. Thank you again for watching. Have a wonderful week, and wherever you go, whatever you do, be safe.